Hey and welcome back. So this is a part two to the enhancing the eyes video that you may have watched or may not have. If you haven't, go back and watch that. And at the end of that video, I know we said we would be moving on to liquefy and doing things in the face, but there's one more thing that I would like to show you or we would like to show you that will just make your eyes pop just that much more. Um, so Jay will explain a little bit about what we're doing and a little bit maybe about why we're doing it. And then I'll jump in and explain the steps that we're taking in order to make that
Use
happen.
blending modes to, uh, there's two different ways we can do this. Blending modes to add darkness to the edge of the eyes. So when you look at someone's eyes really close up, you see that darkness that they have around the edge of the eyes? If we darken that up even by itself, that can make the eyes pop as well. Additionally, people who have very light colored eyes, like if someone has very light blue eyes, and you look closely, they don't actually even have that darkness at all. So there's a couple of different ways that we can do this technique. So one, of course, is to use the quick mask, just like we have, painting over the edge of the eyes, exit, invert, duplicate, and then use that soft light mode. So alternatively, if you have someone who doesn't actually have that dark edge to their eye, you can actually just simply go in there with a very small brush and paint black, apply a little bit of a blur, and then play with the opacity. Okay. So again, just adding more contrast. This one here.
Okay, so we're going to zoom in on the eyes just a little bit more and then grab our brush tool and then enter the quick mask mode. And you can do that by hitting the Q key on your keyboard or going to that little icon below the color squares. Select the retouch layer because that's the layer that we're going to want to be working on. And then we're going to start painting on the outer edges of the eye. And remember, you can change the size of your brush very easily using your left and right bracket keys on your keyboard just below your backspace key. By putting your brush where you want it to be and then changing it, then you will have a better idea and much faster way of getting the correct brush size versus using the drop down menu up at the top. And then we're going to duplicate the layer. Oops, we forgot to exit the quick mask mode. I'm going to undo. Exit the quick mask mode. We have our selection. Invert the selection. And to invert the selection, you can either do Control Shift and I on a PC or Command Shift I on a Mac, or go up to the Select menu option and choose the Invert or Inverse option from there. Okay, and once your selection is inverted, we're going to go ahead and duplicate the layer. You can either do Control J on a PC, Command J on a Mac, or you can go up to your menu bar and select Layer, and from the drop down, excuse me, select Duplicate Layer. And once we have the layer there, and it's going to look like a checkerboard square over on your layers panel, but I promise you the edges of the eyes are there. We are going to rename that layer as eye edges so that we can keep everything straight. And then we're going to go up to our blending mode and we're going to use one of the contrast blending modes. We're going to do soft light, and then we're going to change the opacity a little bit because that's just a little bit too dark. It looks a little unnatural. That looks pretty good there. We're going to zoom out a little bit, see how it looks, toggle through to see the before and after. Maybe change our opacity down just a little bit more to make it just that much more natural. And then we're going to zoom out a little bit more, see how it looks, and that actually looks pretty good. We're going to toggle back and forth. Yeah, I'm liking that. That looks all right. And so to toggle back and forth like this, I know I've mentioned this before, but just as a reminder, to see only one of the layers, or to make all of the layers except the one you want to see disappear, you hold down the Alt key and then click on that eye, the layer eye visibility, or visibility eye, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so do that. It'll make everything else disappear. You can see the before, and then click it again. It'll make everything else reappear. You can see the after. Cool beans. So, and The reason why I'm zooming in and out to see, excuse me, to see what we're doing is when you're zoomed way in, it can either look, your effect can either look too dark or just right. And then once you zoom out, if it looks too dark, it might look okay zoomed out. If it looks just right zoomed in, but then you zoom out, it might not look like you did anything at all. So depending on the size of the portrait that you're printing, um, as might make a difference as to how aggressive you need to be on the edit that you're making. But I think this looks pretty good. Okay, and I'm going to hand it back over to Jay to explain just yet one more thing. Just one more, maybe. I don't know. Kind of reminds me of band class when the conductor would be just one more time, but we'd been saying that for like the last hour and going over the same thing over and over and over and over. Well, anyway, okay. I'm going to hand it back over to Jay, and he's going to go over quickly how to enhance the eyelashes of your subject.
Now she's got really nice lashes. Excellent. That looks good. She's actually got really nice lashes, but sometimes people don't have nice lashes. They're, or, and I say that's not, I shouldn't say it, like, you know what I mean? Like people want to have thicker, more luxurious lashes than they have. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. You can kind of thicken the lashes, or you can actually create new lashes. So I'm going to show you guys how you do this. This is a pretty, this technique is easier if you're using a tablet, okay? And that's why I'm saying, like, don't worry about it too much. And if it's not something you guys have a burning desire to do, don't sweat it. So like when I do this, I would typically have a tablet, and tablets are pressure sensitive. So I can literally put my stylus down and just flick, and it will be denser and go narrower as I move away. So because of that pressure, it just automatically, because of the pressure sensitivity, I put my pen tip down, I flick, and it gets lighter. If you don't have a tablet, you can still do this, and it's through our brushes. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call it eyelash density. And I'm actually going to paint brushes, lashes on there. Now you want a very small brush tip, as it says here, and I'm actually going to go ahead and set my blending mode to soft light right off the bat. So I'm going to knock this down to, we'll say 3. Okay. I'm going to soften the edge of that brush completely if I haven't already. Take my hardness down to 0. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is, this is a little bit of a trick here. So I'm actually in the brush dynamics, and now I'm looking for where I want to, hold on a second, I'm looking for the right feature. Oh, okay, yes, sorry. It's right here. So right now, and so it's size jitter is what I'm looking for. So under the brush settings in the panels, I was in the right place to begin with. I just was looking for the wrong thing. Under shape dynamics, it's automatically set to pen pressure under size jitter. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it to fade. And then I'm going to tell it, like, I'm going to, in fact, I'll come out here and just kind of play and see how this works for me. So as you can see here, I'm just going to click and drag, and you see what happened? It automatically faded it for me, okay? And for the size of lashes that I'm working with here, that might actually do it. I think that maybe that's a little bit thick, that 3 pixel. So I might actually knock that down to a 2 pixel and see how I like it. And that one looks a little bit better. Still getting a little bit long, so maybe I'll do like a 20 under the fade. And now I feel like it's looking pretty good. So now I can come down here on her lashes and I can just click and drag on her lashes and that might still be a little bit too much. But once you zoom out, it might not be that big of a deal. You can even try to put a little curve on it. Especially if I knock that opacity down. I mean, at a particular magnification, it's not going to make that much of a difference. And that's one of the reasons why I work so minutely and then kind of zoom out and take a look. But yeah, you can certainly give longer lashes on the top. And you don't have to go overboard, just enough. Again, you're trying to make those eyes pop. You're just trying to add contrast. So like now, again, if we look, but again, like that, just that cumulative effect. Look at the difference in her eyes.
All right, so those are two more techniques to enhancing the eyes of your subject in a portrait or a photograph. You may or may not ever need to use those or want to use those, but they're good things to know just in case.